Welcome to our second part of our conversation with Sergio, all about financing, especially if you're looking to become an airline pilot through flight training. Here we are. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the conversation than we did on the first half. If you haven't caught the first half of the conversation, there's a lot of good context and overview about financing. But if you're here now, let's go ahead and dive into the second half of our conversation. I see here, and we've talked a little bit about this already, but I probably will add my own touch to it. So the question is, if a student has no credit or bad credit, a lot of debt, low income,
Yeah.
but their cosigner has perfect record, or credit score is high income, things like that, could a student still get approved? And what are their chances? Does a cosigner really tip the scale sometimes for people?
It does, yeah. If
Mhm.
your credit is not great
Hmm.
or not good, I should
Yeah.
say,
Hmm.
then a co-signer can really help you to be
Hmm.
able to get that loan, right?
Hmm.
A good credit-worthy co-signer
Right.
can really help you.
Hmm.
Um, but if you like have a bankruptcy or tax liens, you're gonna get flat out denied without the option of a co-signer,
And
right?
that's what
So
I wanted
if
to
the
know.
credit is just bad,
Yes.
there's no way, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a history there that we're seeing that you are not going to be a good candidate to be able to pay this back afterwards,
Right.
right? But if your credit is okay or maybe not so great,
Hmm.
but there's no big bankruptcies, there's no big liens on there,
Hmm.
then a cosigner, a good creditworthy cosigner, they can really help you to be able to secure that loan.
One misconception, and you've already addressed this a little bit,
Hmm.
but I want to point it out is one misconception seems to be that the credit score itself is everything.
Mm.
And you're saying comprehensive credit background check kind of thing, not background, but
Yeah,
credit
yeah.
check.
Review, yeah.
Yeah, because you're
Hmm.
actually looking at some of the details, not just the number, right? So are you
Right.
saying that if someone maybe has a similar number to someone else,
Hmm.
but some of the things on there are different, that
Yeah.
could actually affect
Yeah,
the
yeah.
approval odds, right?
So they're probably thinking, well, God, I have a 640, so I probably won't get approved.
Right.
So, but again, that FICO score doesn't tell us the whole story, right?
Right.
That's the starting point. But then we got to look at this comprehensive review about established credit history, residential history, job history. Um,
Some of that could work in that 640's favor, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
And your debt to income ratios, and then also your payment history. Are
Hmm.
you paying your debts on time? So, right, if all these other factors check out, that FICO score can be less of a factor
Hmm.
than all the others that you've checked off that you're
Okay.
doing well in. Yeah.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to point at. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was just like, "Oh, my score's bad," or
Yeah.
"My score's good." I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's
Now,
like
if it's like 500, then we may have a
there-
problem, right? But
you're gonna draw the line
right,
somewhere,
yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah, because that's at the
Yeah,
very, very bottom, and you
yeah.
want to be like average to just maybe a little below average of the average national level of
Hmm.
the FICO score. But again, FICO doesn't tell us the whole story, so which is why
Right,
we do a whole comprehensive review.
right. Okay, gotcha. And then that's what I'm gonna do. I'm still gonna ask you that hard question,
Yeah.
which I didn't ask yet. I kind of thought I would ask it earlier.
Mm.
Is there a range that seems safe to operate within when it comes to a credit score?
Yeah, that's hard, right? Because everyone is different. Because again, remember, you have all these other things that we're looking at,
Yeah.
right? So that's the starting point. I mean, I've seen them as low as 640
Hmm.
that we've seen,
Hmm.
but it's an array of things because these are the other factors that we want to
Right.
make sure that we're looking at,
Hmm.
that these are doing well so that this can be a bigger scorecard
Hmm.
than just a FICO score.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Cool. That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
That being said, there still doesn't seem to be any harm in applying. I don't want to say any harm, low risk, because it's still you're going to get like a credit inquiry,
Yeah.
which will make
Credit
a
inquiry.
small
Yep.
impact
Yeah.
temporarily.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so still apply if you're curious.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if this is where you want to go, and this is what you want to do, you need to make sure that you have the financing to be able to do it. And a loan, a private loan, is going to be the way to do that.
Yeah, and if you need a cosigner, well then you'll get that notification. It
You
sounds
will.
like
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Upfront.
Up
Yeah.
front, up
Hmm.
front, exactly. And I've always been afraid of the cosigner thing, but I mean, you guys, even just talking to you one time made me think a little bit differently
Yeah.
about it. So,
When it gets a piece of mind of that cosigner and say, okay, you know what? There's a cosigner release option. Then let me check into that
yeah.
because I don't want to be tied down for this
And
for
I don't like
10 to 15
asking people
years. Yeah.
exactly. I don't even like asking people for that, but
Yeah.
that makes me feel more comfortable
Yeah.
too. I'm like, what if I mess up, right? But I'm like, oh, there's still if I can at least do this, I know they're safe and it's only on me. That
Exactly.
makes me feel a lot better
Exactly.
as the main borrower. There's some questions that I know you get
Hmm.
very frequently. Some of them may cross over, but I like the way they sound here. So one question that I know our admissions team also gets, and I haven't asked yet, is how much can I borrow?
Yeah.
And that's a really broad question, but yeah,
It
when
is a
someone
broad
asks you that, what do you
question.
say?
And it kind of goes back to the conversation we had about budgeting.
Yeah.
You always start with admissions, right? Like, what does it cost to go here? Are there any living expenses that are allotted to?
Hmm.
But that's where you want to start off when you're looking at loans is how
Hmm.
much can I borrow?
Yeah.
And then do I really need all that money?
Hmm.
Right. And making sure that you budget yourself accordingly to know, okay, they're saying that I can do 120,000, but based on my budget, I can do 100,000 and I'm
Hmm.
good. So I don't need the additional 20,000.
Okay.
You still have room to borrow for that 20,000 later on if it turns out, oh, my budget was totally off,
Okay.
that I can come back in and borrow the additional 20,000 within that
Okay.
year, right? So there's that opportunity to be able to do that as well.
Hmm.
But that's where I would start is kind of understanding what the costs are going to be, make sure that I can cover the direct costs. And what I
Hmm.
mean by direct costs is what is the tuition for the school?
Yes.
And then the living expenses, that's on me, right? To see
Budget.
where can I kind of cut corners so that I don't have to borrow so much more money.
Okay, great. And that's good then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's keep it going then. It
Yeah.
says, are there any fees or repayment penalties? Of course, we know about interest and things
Yeah.
like that, but what else is there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there are no fees on Sallie Mae loans. So if you
Okay.
need $100,000, you're going to get $100,000.
Hmm.
It's a little different than some other loans that are out there that do have fees.
Hmm.
And when fees are involved, that means that if you need 100,000, it's 100,000 minus that fee,
Okay.
but you're still responsible to pay back the full $100,000,
Right.
right? So no fees. And then if you want to pay this off sooner than later, you can definitely do that.
That's what I was wondering.
No penalties whatsoever.
Because if I pay my car off early,
Yeah.
I think they're going to charge me.
Yeah, and it looks good on your
Yeah.
credit too,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
you made some payments and then now boom, we just made a big payment and now this debt is done, right?
Okay.
So usually a student has about 10 to 15 years, depending on how much they borrow, to pay this back, right?
Hmm.
So if you say, well, I want to do this, my goal is to pay this off in 8 years, you can do that and no
Hmm.
penalty whatsoever.
Do you see that people are maybe paying loans off at a faster rate, like students specifically when they get into their career?
It varies
Yeah,
by
I'm
student
sure.
and their
Yeah.
situation and their debts that they may have. Some of them may have mortgages where others
Mhm.
are paying rent. Some of them may have children where others may not have children. So
Mhm.
it really depends. But it's just across the board different for every student.
Okay.
So yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you if they're paying off sooner or later.
Okay.
But you can. And if that's the goal, you can definitely do that and get
Mhm.
no penalties at
Okay.
all.
Makes sense. Okay, great. And that was one of my questions that I had on a different page, which was how long does it normally take? But you said usually the terms could look something like 10 to 15 months, right?
Yeah, 10 to 15 years.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
years,
yeah. No,
not
yeah,
months.
yeah.
That's a lot.
$100,000 and 10 to 15
Yeah.
years, like, oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Yes.
No. So 10 to 15 years
Okay, great.
to pay it back. And it just depends how much you borrowed.
Mhm.
But yeah, no. But if you want to pay it off in 8,
Yeah.
no worries.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. And one thing about working here at this flight school, I didn't know anything about aviation before I started working with Rust.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot, and to me, I'm like, wow, I feel like I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could be a flight.
Are
I
you?
could be a
Yeah, there you go. You're getting the itch.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
like,
getting a little itch. I'm like, maybe I should go get a
You're
discovery
like, I
flight.
can
don't
do
know.
this. Yeah.
But also, as someone who's been wary of loans, I'm like, this seems like a really great investment.
Yeah.
For most people who are making it.
It is. Yeah.
So it just sounds. It sounds
And
great.
it's a profession that's needed, right? There's been a
Yeah.
lot of pilot shortages, and a
Mhm.
lot of students are seeing that there is a career in aviation. And I think this is a great opportunity for students to explore
Yeah.
an aviation program.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I guess while we're here, uh, it doesn't seem like many students are paying for this out of pocket, right? I mean,
No,
I guess you probably don't have that information.
well, I
necessarily.
don't, yeah, I don't know from the school to school, but I mean, some of the costs can be a little high, but again, it's like an investment in your education, right?
Right.
Because your income potentials can be pretty high for a pilot, right?
Mhm.
But again, it just goes back to just borrowing what you need and not what you want. I think that's what you want
Right.
to keep in the back of your mind.
Exactly. And I guess my point is it probably seems like the higher side of the percentage of students
Mm,
who are entering flight training, especially for a career as an
mhm.
airline pilot, not just
Yeah.
hobbyist or anything like that. If someone's trying to become an airline pilot and they need to go to a fast track program that's probably going to be a little hefty on the payment side,
Hmm.
they're most likely going to be taken out a loan.
Yeah, most
So,
likely. I would say that it's a high percentage of
yeah.
students are going to need some financing through a
Hmm.
loan
Hmm.
to help them pay. And then there can be some payment plans that may be available,
Uh-huh.
right? But again, if the cost is, I don't know, $80,000 in a payment plan, that can be difficult. This is easy peasy, right? So you get this loan. If you don't want to make any payments while you're enrolled in the program, you can defer
Yep.
and then start paying back after you've graduated. And
Exactly.
then again, we talked about this. You have 6 months after you graduate
Hmm.
to kind of get it together, find a job, and then go into full payment on that loan.
And that's what I wanted to highlight too. Is just that It's good to wrap your head around this whole loan process right
Yeah.
now. This one reason I'm excited to be having this conversation is because it's kind of something you can't get around in
Yeah.
the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether you do this for your school or
Yeah.
not, you kind of need to understand how some of this
Yeah.
works, whether it be private loans or not.
Yeah.
But if you are going to flight school, you're likely to want to
Yeah,
understand
yeah. The
how
the
it
costs
works.
are pretty high,
Yeah.
and a
So
loan is definitely going to be needed. I would say the majority of
yeah,
students,
yeah,
I would hate venture 90% of them
yeah,
would need it, right?
yeah.
There's some others, maybe in the military, like veteran benefits may be available for them
Yes.
as well, right? But not everyone is in the military, so
You still have
private
to get your
loan,
private by itself.
right?
I've
Private
learned.
loan is usually going to be the route to go to help you pay
Yeah.
for your education. Yeah,
Okay, great. And then I think one of the last ones, and this is what I wanted to ask you about it earlier, but I knew we'd get to it now.
yeah.
And I don't even understand this. What would be some of the differences someone might want to know between a variable and a fixed rate?
Yeah, so fixed rate it's a rate that stays constant for the life of the loan. So it's
Hmm.
not going to go up or down, right?
Right,
So that's some peace of mind to know that that monthly payment is never going to change. It's going to be the same amount until the life of that loan.
right.
A variable rate fluctuates depending on that index rate,
Hmm.
right? So it could be that your monthly payment can go up or down,
Okay,
depending, right? So I get the question, well, which one should I choose, a fixed rate or variable rate?
right.
It really depends on the student and your situation,
Hmm.
right? If your goal is to pay this off sooner than later,
Hmm.
then maybe a variable rate would be the way to
Maybe
go,
there's an
right? Because
opportunity
it
there.
doesn't it doesn't do high and low peaks, but there's some change there, right?
Hmm.
But if you know it's going to take you a while to pay this back, then maybe a fixed rate option is the
Hmm.
best because you know that that monthly payment is not going to change. It's going to be constant for the life of that loan.
Okay, and is there like an easy enough answer to give when I ask what are some of the reasons it fluctuates? I don't really fully understand the variable rate.
It depends on the rate, the
Yeah.
index rate, the market,
Hmm.
right? So when the market's not great,
Oh,
it
it's
can
going
go
with
up,
the
and then
okay.
the same thing kind of thing, right? So
Okay.
that's just based on the market and the index rates that they
Oh,
have. Yeah.
okay, gotcha. I didn't realize that private loans would still do that. I mean,
Hmm.
something for like education
Yeah.
or higher education.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense. Well, I mean, look, we've gotten through a lot of great questions here. I'm just gonna review and make sure there's nothing that I'm leaving off the
Yeah.
table.
Go for it.
And this, I'm sure there might be some things that we want to put on there, but
Let's
um,
see.
it, I guess I'll kind of maybe do some of these speed round ones too.
Hmm.
Is there much of a difference here between when someone's using Sallie Mae for a 4-year degree versus aviation?
No, not really. No, and the thing with 4-year and aviation programs, although they're two different type of schools, one is
Yes.
degree seeking, one is non-degree seeking,
Okay.
but you're basically using the same loan
Hmm.
that a 4-year college student is using. So
Hmm.
that's the benefit too,
Okay.
that the rates are pretty really good for
Hmm.
students, right? So it can be as low as 3%
Hmm.
at the low end
Hmm.
and as high as 15 to 16%.
Okay.
And again, it all depends on your credit to see where you
Yes.
fall. We usually fall right in the middle
Right.
for most students. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Then that was what some of my question. Are there competitors that you kind of find yourself up against, or are there ways that you have competitive rates with people who look at alternatives? I don't really know, and it seems like for aviation, there's not as many people taking out working with other people other than Sallie Mae.
No, yeah. I mean,
So
we've been doing this for 50 plus years. I mean,
okay.
this is kind of what we do, right? And
Yeah.
we're good at it. And we're
Okay.
the number one lender in the country when it comes to education loans, right?
Hmm.
Private loans.
So
Aviation programs are a little different because usually students are borrowing a personal loan
hmm.
that is not an educational loan.
Hmm.
And there's a big difference between that, right? So, an educational loan, we know that the student is a student,
Hmm.
where for a personal loan, they're not looking at them that way, right? So,
Right.
there's not maybe a deferments or forbearances available for them. So, if
Hmm.
ever a student has any issues paying back this loan,
Right.
I would say contact Sallie Mae
Hmm.
and say, hey, I'm having some difficulties. What can I do?
Hmm.
And we'll try to find a solution either through forbearance where they can postpone payments for a period of time
Hmm.
and to get their back on their feet. Because the last thing we want is for them to default on their rates.
Yeah.
Where a personal loan may not be as lenient, they're a little bit stricter.
Hmm.
Once you go into repayment, you got to start paying back, right?
Yeah.
Our rates also are based on students, right? We don't want to give
Right.
them these 20, 25, 30%, where some other personal loans kind of go up that high,
They're willing
right?
to.
Yes,
Yeah.
right? And we don't think that's fair to the student. We want to make sure that it's within the market, that's a
Hmm.
rate that is accessible to students, and that they're able to pay that back after they graduate.
Gotcha. And what I'm hearing is that it sounds like Sallie Mae not only prides themselves, but are kind of tailoring what they do towards someone who's going to become a student.
Correct.
And as we know in the country, I mean, I don't know all the conversation that goes around it. A student loan is a big topic.
Yeah.
So kind of taking that into account and not taking, understanding the differences.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's useful.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then, is there any advice you would give to someone who needs help paying for school?
Yeah,
it might be a simple answer, but
yeah, I know, right? It's so broad. Yeah, advice to help them pay for school is just, I would always start with, okay, let me look at what school I want to go to, right? And start looking at the cost, right? And what they're offering, right? And the programs that they have. And then that way now you talk to admissions and say, okay, this is where I want to go. How much does it cost? And what financing opportunities are there for me to pay for school? Because I don't have the cash, because I'm not going to be working. And do you have money for living expenses as well? And if that's the case, then now the next step would be to budget myself to say, okay, let me cut corners here and there, and then know exactly how much I need. And then be able to borrow that way.
And you have the total number already determined. So you're going into this this process knowing what you need out of it, not just what they're offering.
Exactly. And then before that too, though, if aviation is the way that you want to go, going back to what we talked about, really looking at your credit just to make sure that you're going to be able to get these loans. Because again, these private loans are credit based.
Yes.
So you have to have an established credit to be able to get this loan. If not, you may need a co-signer, right? So those are the things that I'll probably start looking at.
Okay, gotcha. And just to real quick summarize those into maybe what I feel like are three things is understand your credit and where you're at and what your odds might be like.
That way, no surprises.
Exactly, right? And then know your living expenses and what you may need to live off of. For, like, for example, school, like Thrust Flight, a lot of these fast track programs are about 9 months-ish. Give yourself a good year budget and then find out how much it costs to go to the school that you're interested in going to. So you have a total number. Those three things should probably give you a good foothold on getting started at looking at the financing,
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Those would be the top things I would look at.
And I don't know if this is going to be, it seems like you guys have a terminology, the Smart Option Student Loan. Is that what basically any loan is being referred to when you're going to Sallie Mae for education?
No, we have all different kinds of private loans, right? Because we work with different colleges and universities. So graduate students have their own like MBA loan, medical loan, law school loan. But for the aviation programs, we have the Smart Option Student Loan for career training. Right? So that's specific to aviation programs. And that will be the specific loan that we'll use for aviation. The undergraduate students have what is called the Smart Option Student Loan just by itself for undergraduate students. But it's basically the same loan with the same kind of rates and fees.
Okay, gotcha. Then if someone, let's say someone's they know their living expenses, maybe they're a little older, maybe they're looking to changing their career, maybe they know how much flight school is already, and they're just like really on the fence right now, and they're like, loan this, loan that. We've answered a lot of questions so far. It sounds like, should they go Google the Smart Option Student Loan?
I would, where I would start is going to the aviation schools that go into their websites, and usually there's a location that says financing options.
Yes, we have that
seen what's
too.
there, right? And if you want to learn more about Sallie Mae, you can always go to salliemae.com and be able to see the different loans that are there available for you. But that's probably where I would start off. If I'm looking at Thrust, let me go to Thrust. Flight.com, I think, or Thrust.com, I think.
It's we have thrustflight.com, and I'm pretty sure there is some sort of, I think you can literally apply on our website.
And there's a section that says financing aviation program, and then you should be seeing the financing options that are there. Sallie Mae will be listed there. Go in, check it out. It'll give you detailed information about the loan program before you even start, so that you have a good idea of what to expect. Then you start the application process, 8 to 10 minutes. You know if you've been approved, denied, or if you need a co-signing.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's great. 8 to 10 minutes. You know what you need to do after that. I mean, it sounds like a step in the right direction, like starting the staircase. Like once you're on, you just keep one foot after another. So,
and it's easy. We try to keep it as easy as possible because we know students are busy, and generation is more like we need this now. So we try to make it as fast as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I like to hear. I like simplicity. You know, sometimes I don't call places because I'm like, I don't want to. I'll go in. I want to knock it all out at once.
Yeah, so. I don't want to go and call and apply. It's exactly. Takes too long.
One thing I did want to highlight, because you talked about it when we first talked. Okay, I applied. I accept the loan. I'm in flight training. We're talking about being on top of your credit. How do I stay on top of this loan? Is there a way to know where I'm at with it? Do I have to call? Do I have to write it down all the time?
Yeah. So when you apply, you're going to have an account that you're going to set up with Sallie Mae. And on there is going to tell you the loans that you've borrowed,
Mhm.
right? How much you borrowed, when is it going to come due? You can manage your account there, right? If you want to make a one-time payment,
Mhm.
um, some benefits too that I should probably add to the loan program because there's some features and benefits that I think are important for students to know about.
Yeah.
Is that again, we talked about zero fees, right? So if you need 100,000, you get 100,000. But also, I always get the question, how can I get the lowest rate possible on a student loan?
Mhm.
And it's two ways that you can do that, right?
Okay.
You
Yes.
choose to make payments while you're in school, like making interest payments,
Mhm.
and then and you also sign up for the automatic debit benefit. And what that is you get a 0.25% interest rate reduction if you sign up for automatic debit, where your payments are automatically taken out of your checking your savings account on a
Okay.
monthly basis. And by you signing up for that, you get a 0.25% interest rate reduction.
That's
So
a
those are
that
the
sounds
two
like a
things.
lot.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No, but those are the two things that you can do to lower that. And
Yeah.
it's kind of out of sight, out of mind
Uh-huh.
because you don't have to remember, oh, I got to make a payment to Sallie Mae.
Mhm.
It's automatically taken from your checking or savings account automatically that you signed up for. And then that way you'll know that you'll be making payments on time, no issues with payment history and these sort of things,
Uh-huh.
right? So that makes it easier.
Yes.
And then I would probably add a third one.
Okay.
A third thing would be a cosigner,
Mhm.
right? Because maybe you got approved on your own, but if
Uh,
you have a really good credit-worthy cosigner,
uh,
that can maybe also help you to reduce the rate. Not required.
not
If you
required.
have good enough credit, no need to borrow a cosigner if you don't need to. But if you're looking to get the lowest rate possible, it's really those two things and maybe an additional cosigner.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, because I did mean to ask the
Yeah,
question, and I don't know where it is on my notes here, but that is one of them. That's like, how do I keep my interest rates as low as possible?
yeah,
That's always a concern for me as well. Is I do want to ask one question about maybe your second point, which would be, um, is the reason for does it seem like there's less risk when you have automatic payments? Um, yeah.
yeah. There is because life happens. You're like, oh crap, I forgot to pay my Sally Mae loan. Now
Right.
I'm already a few days late. I'm getting notices. So it's kind of out of mind, right?
Yeah.
So you know that automatically it's getting paid on a monthly basis, and then again, by you doing that, you're getting an interest rate reduction. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's
And you can
why.
stop and, if you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, and just I want to make payments on my own, you can do that. But I tell you that the majority of students prefer this because it's easy and they get the benefit
Mhm.
and they know that it's getting paid on a timely basis.
Right, and I guess the reason I wanted to ask this because there's many different things that I do make automatic payments on,
Yeah.
and I get a lowered bill for
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And to me, I'm like, that says to me that these companies are
Yeah.
saying statistically they're probably seeing higher success rates
Right.
if you put it on automatic payments. So if you can do that, sounds like a
Yeah.
beneficial
And
thing.
remember, your
So
credit is also based on you making payments on
exactly.
time. So this will help you to make your payments on time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just an
Okay.
easy way to pay back your loan.
Okay, sounds great. And then I mean, look, we've knocked out pretty much all the questions I can find on here.
Yeah.
And I somehow missed that one, and you brought it up for me. There was something on my mind. Oh, well, look, you've taken the time out here. You've taken the time to sit down and talk with me and to talk with Thrust Flight about how potential students or students anywhere going into flight training could approach getting financing and understand it better. And I appreciate you for doing that. For the record, that being said, I want to know a little bit. Can you speak to why Sallie Mae is a great option for out there for almost anyone who's thinking about doing this? I'd like you to kind of like highlight what you think is great about Sallie Mae.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we have longevity. We've been in this for 50 plus years.
Yeah.
We're a trusted advisor to not only schools, but to students. They
Yeah.
trust us. We have really good comparable rates. There's a lot of bar benefits that are available for students.
Mhm.
If you're having any issues, we'll work with you just to make sure you get you back on track.
Mhm.
But we are the largest lender in this space to
Yeah.
help finance your education.
And this may not be something you can speak to. It doesn't sound like there's many other options for aviation, at least in maybe Texas right now. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think a few lenders are kind of leaving the market space, but
yeah.
the way that we do loans, I mean, for us to be around for 50 plus years, I mean, it says a
Exactly.
lot, right?
To me, it does. Yeah.
And we know what we're doing.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure we're doing what's the best interest for students and families and that they're finding the right solution to help them pay.
Yeah.
So, knock on wood, we don't see ourselves going anywhere. Hopefully, it'll be another 50 years. In Sallie
Yeah.
Mae. Yeah.
Well, I think we look forward to continue having conversations with you guys. Our students are, I'm sure they're grateful, especially the ones I talked to. Who was it? Sam Shepard recently,
Mhm.
and he was a student at Thrust Flight, and The way he spoke on going into his career, flight training was totally worth it. And you guys are giving that access to, I mean, I think the majority of our students, I don't know the
Yeah.
numbers again, but
Hmm.
we could venture to say 90%.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's a good percentage. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So at least
And
a
you
high
guys are
percentage.
growing and expanding, which is great. So
Yeah.
yeah, we love the partnership.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I mean, I don't have any other questions for you, to be honest with you.
All right. No.
And I think there's been a lot to learn here. I'm really hoping that people heard and took some notes and maybe feel good about going to at least apply or asking a flight school how much it
Yeah.
might cost to go there or looking into their own credit. I hope they're taking some action when they hear everything that we give.
Yeah, I hope they feel a
to
little bit
this.
more comfortable about
Yeah.
knowing, okay, this is not as scary as it seems.
Hmm.
It's an easy process.
Hmm.
If you don't want the loan, you can always cancel the loan. So, I
Yes.
mean, try to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, again, if you guys have listened to this whole thing, thank you for sticking around. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you have questions, feel free to show those in the comments. Maybe you'll see them or I'll send them over to
Yeah,
you if we
please.
really need to, and we'll answer those to the best of our ability. Otherwise, of course, like, comment, and subscribe. That's helpful to us. If you're on our streaming platforms, our ratings really help us out and help more people hear the information that we have to give. And again, thank you, Sergio,
No,
for
thank you
joining
for
us.
the invite, Zachary.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say, or in this case, what Sergio had to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Zachary.
Thank you.